Helen Van Wyk, and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to examine carefully the color white. Isn't it interesting how we'll talk about shades of blue, dark blue, light blue, shades of red, bright red, or light pastel pink, and yet we never think of light white and dark white. We feel as though white is white. I've been fascinated with the color white and compositions of white things for a long time. I like the fact that it is starkly silhouetted against this dark background, and then the light is streaming across this cloth. I have set up something much more subtle for you to watch today. I've put a light background, a white table, and eggshells, and an old white picture. Let me show you how I go about presenting white that seemingly has no contrast, seemingly has no interest, but trying to apply paint in such a way that it takes on a charm. So let me place the subject first. That's going to be the rightest most side of the eggshell. This down here is going to be the little bottom of the middle eggshell, and this is going to be the completed egg over here. And so it's within this area that I'm going to work. Quickly, but as accurately as possible, sketch in that eggshell. That tells me where the bottom of the picture is. I hope that while I show you all about white, I can talk too a little bit about what happens to the beautiful shape, a circle, when it is seen in perspective, and we end up having to draw one of the most difficult shapes, and that is the ellipse, the perspective distortion of a circle. And so I find it's easier to do the ellipse and then add any little addition to it rather than do the whole thing. And now this eggshell is here. Remember I said I wanted it to sit there? Yes, and I respect that, because this establishes the composition, which is an asset to the drawing. It's terrible to draw in the wrong place. Not in the wrong place, but in a place that is not an advantage to the pictorial presentation. And so this gives me a start. I've just noticed in looking at this, I don't like this one here. I want it further down. Yes, of course, I'm starting with dark marks. I want to know where I'm going to put my white paint. I did tone the canvas down to gray so that I can really present the white onto it. Why don't I start right out with the white picture? What color white is it? When you paint white, you can't paint it just plain white because it's too colorless, and I actually see a coloration about that. What kind of white is it? I'm going to start out with some white, and why don't I try it? Ooh, that looks darker than that, because I will eventually want to put a highlight on it. So I'm going to put some black in it, and oddly enough, I think it looks a green white. Always ask yourself some questions about the color that you're looking at. Ask yourself, what tone is it? What particular peculiarity is the color? This is a very light gray, vague green. painting white is an excellent color lesson. Well, actually, if you can paint one color beautifully, you just have to apply that knowledge and that sensitivity to all the other colors you see. And now I'm going to put the shadow in the complementary color to green, violet. Very quickly present the general overall tonal and color effects. I'll go back to that. And the reliable, wonderful cast shadow. What an odd shape that cast shadow is in this kind of lighting. I'm going to change it and make it my own shape. We don't paint what we see, we paint what we saw. I saw a better cast shadow another day. Now, with the light coming from the right, I have to make believe I see this white background darker over here, because I can't paint white against white or light against light. I always have to put light against dark to make the image appear on the flat surface. The handle, oh sure, that'll come later. Now the table is a warm white. A warm color is any yellow, orange, or red. So I put yellow ochre into the white to present this section of paint presentation of the subject. Use violet too for the cast shadow. I want to do this very quickly because I have something so much fun to do on these eggshells, and cover the canvas with eggshell color. Well, they're light, they're yellowish, and not much of a color, just a daub. They even look a little green. One way that you can learn to see the variations of white is to put a raw egg next to a hard-boiled egg. And you'll see two different textures, two different whites. I'm going to step back. Before I do, I'd like to wipe away a little bit. Why? So I don't have to be bumping into all this wet stuff. It'll be just a little soft asset to the next things that I'm going to do. Why don't I start really working on the background to show you how to arrange your tone values to be able to put a white subject against a white background. I've just painted this with a greenish gray. Now I'm going to darken that with its complement violet. And yes, away goes the pot, because I want to do that better. And now a darker tone again. Now, yes, this seems to be adding color, but when it all gets on the canvas, the orchestration or the harmony will present a colorful white because we do always want to show our colors off as lovely as possible. This is a lesson that I have used in my teaching life, years and years and years, they say, oh, if you have studied with Helen Van Wyk, she's going to make you paint white on white, and she's going to make you paint eggshells. This is the shadow. Isn't it nice that the dark over here is balancing this shadow? And there's a little example of my blending technique that I call poopsie-doo. And that prepares the area for me to do this ellipse. So white, remember I made it a greenish white? Again, now. The darker background is now making it possible for the light of the thickness of the picture to show. Arrange your contrasts. Let's take a hypothetical situation. What if I had that white picture with lights all the way around it? Back, front, top, side. Would you be able to see it? I don't think so. It would just disappear in glaring illumination. We never see in nature that kind of lighting. We live in a world with one source of light, the sun, and that's why I arrange my subject matters in that natural situation and study what it does to the subjects. What it does to the subjects is shows them off so realistically. Now, right under that ellipse, there's a darker tone. And under that, there's a lighter tone because of the little ridge. And with a bigger brush, I can come down with this off-white. In this particular case, the off-white is gray, greenish white. That color is not that difficult to recognize. It's the shadow color that's a little bit tougher, but we rely on nature. Nature tells us you always have to use the complementary color, and so I've mixed a gray violet. To send that color into shadow. I want to hop to doing the eggshells. Let me step back a minute though, so I can think a little. I always think things out before I start to paint. I'm going to try to have you sit on the end of my brush. Sit right here so you can watch. In order to have you sit there, I have to knock the devil off that sits there all the time, saying, Helen, I bet you can't do it. I bet you can't do it. So now, with yellowish white, I'm going to paint that back side of that egg. Put it down and then coat it again. Feather or Release the pressure of the brush as you encounter the shadow. And now darken that color with gray. To help that color roll into shadow. And now use violet, its complement. Way over here on the dark side of the palette. Yes, I do see the shadow on that egg that dark. That's what's going to make it look dimensional. That's what's going to make it look real. It's in a very light situation, and so my reflection is going to be quite light. And that fills in the shadow. And then the egg stands on its own. With its cast shadow. This egg is casting a shadow, this shell is casting a shadow on the back egg, which I need. I need that dark. Now I have a very fragile little shape to make. The thickness of an eggshell. The thickness of its shell. My goodness. Yes, there, and I'm going to cut it down with the shadow. The interior, the inside of the eggshell, is a different white than the outside. It looks yellowish. And I want this shell to come in front of its back shape, so why don't I slide that further down? Oh yes, if I made this yellowish orange, I have to add some yellowish orange in this shadow too. Reflected light, reflected color. Move this all the way down. This is a very studious manipulation, but something that is well learned on eggs and more easily applied on shapes that are not as fragile as this. Doing a painting of eggshells is like practicing, like the musician practicing scales. Practice. Don't always be painting pictures that you are inspired to paint. Paint pictures just because you love to paint. You love to try. Now, I can cut that eggshell up. Blend in the edge. And now, always the last tone value is the reflection. That's that lighter tone you see in the shadow. It's not what you paint, it's how you paint it. a brush that has a nice sharp end makes this difficult paint maneuver a little easier. Now, how about that? Eggshells there, paint versions of them here by painting in the contrasts caused by the lighting. Let me step back, see what I did. Since I paint what the light does, the light has to be consistent. And so you can see how there's the same type of light hitting the bowl as hitting the cloth. But if you look at my picture, I have one kind of light hitting the eggshells, and the rest of the picture doesn't have the same kind of illumination. So I use my eggshells as a key to then relate all the other light areas or white areas to it. So now this is going to get much lighter. I won't have to worry really about losing their appearance because I have the tone values arranged, or nature has arranged the tone values for me, that I rarely am going to have light against light. I'm always going to have light against dark. Here I have the light table against the dark cast shadow under the picture. Here I have the light forming the cast shadow. Oh yeah, here I'm going to have a problem. I'll think about that later. So now I have white subjects on a white table. I have to whiten the background. It looks like a green background. When painting white things, use a lot of color in the beginning so that you can use pretty much plain white, pure white, into the color to make the presentation you had in the first place, that you're painting all whites. But your brush is always dipping or blending into the color presentation you set down in the first place. It's a good idea always to start your pictures with a lot of color. That amount of color will withstand all the diddling you're going to do with it to finally end up with the effect that you want. And, of course, this picture doesn't have as white a look. Look how the green is veering its greenish head because I've made so much of a white type of presentation with the background and the foreground. A little bit of alizarin crimson into the white to put the shine on it. A highlight, a highlight, a highlight, and here. If they stand out too much, I could lighten the whole vase or pitcher, utilizing the green the tone I started with as its fuser color or blender color. Oh, the light is sitting right in that concave shape of its spout. Yes, I'd like to make the shadow side of the vase separate itself from the cast shadow from the vase, and that again, as I used a reflected light in this egg, I'm going to use a reflected light in the pitcher. The reliable 5 tone values. Learn them on white, apply them to other colors. I have a highlight, a body tone, a body shadow, a cast shadow, and a reflection. Next time I meet with you, these 5 tone values, these 5 reliable tone values, will be used to paint drapery. They are really quite omnipotent. So, next time I will paint drapery, or maybe I'll just make soup. Typical of something that this is, and I still haven't told Herb how much I paid for it. I'm going to try, or I want you, yes, I'm going to try to have chicks. Must be because she's so pure. But hello, I'm Helen Van Wyk, and welcome to my studio. I love this old bowl. It's very old. It's in the 18th century.